Hello. So today I thought we'd have a little bit of a play with some PaperArtsy Infusions. This is Black Knight. Some Gesso, which is PBO Studio Acrylics Gesso. My brayer, I've got a couple of them. And some copy paper for creating backgrounds. This is quite reasonably heavy copy paper. It's about 160. It doesn't warp and sort of curl as much as the thin copy paper when you put wet mediums on it. And I find it quite adequate just for creating die cuts or backgrounds for my journal. If I was doing more serious art, I would use watercolour paper, but this is fine for journaling. So we'll have a sheet of that. I'm going to add a little bit of gesso to my glass mat. Going to get my infusions and sprinkle a bit on. As I say, this is Black Knight. Just going to move my paper a little bit, my water sprayer out of the way. This sprayer is a little bit temperamental, the ends come out, but it still works. And then, as you see, the infusions start to create this lovely effect because they dissolve into the gesso, because the gesso is a wet medium. Now, I've done this before just to see what worked. And last time I went that way as well with my brayer. This time I'm not going to, because I want to later emboss this with a wood grain embossing folder, because I think that'll look nice. So that's our first sheet of paper. Very, very nice. I wanted quite a lot of white space, and you'll see why later. So I'm going to leave it at that and move on to the next sheet. I think I need a little bit more gesso. Come on. See, it's getting very stringy. I'm going to use my smaller roller this time. A bit more infusions. Again, Black Knight the same. I'm going to mix it a little bit more this time, so we'll have more. There'll be less background showing. This brayer does leave a wavy line at the edges because it's a seam roller actually, and the edges had got very tatty. I'll go that way as well with this. So you can see there's a lot more gesso this time, hardly any white space. And I'm going both ways. As I keep rollering over, you'll see the little bits of the walnut ink on my brayer and on the paper, and they are starting to mix in the gesso. Alright, just pick any last bits up with this one. Alright, so that's got a lot more coverage, but there is still a little bit of a gap. But you can see the colour variations are very, very nice. So I'll dry these and then we'll do the next step. So we're back and these are completely dry now. You can probably see that's got a lot more white space, as I said before, and it's got some lovely visual texture. This one is a little bit more bland. There's a little bit of visual texture, but not a lot. So I'm going to treat these slightly different now. We'll start with this one. And what I'm going to do, got the Black Knight Infusions. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on, well, a fair bit. spritz it with water, which activates it. And you can see all the colours of the pigments moving. But then I'm going to brayer it out across the paper. And you think, what a mess. And it is at this stage. And this I will brayer off onto another sheet of paper so that I don't lose it, which I'm going to put it on here. But the bonus is when I press this onto here, the back of this sheet of paper, which is an old brayering off sheet, will get the nice pattern. But we'll also get the surplus ink onto here. So that's got the excess off there. But you can see we've got a nice little bit of depth in there now. It's got more, it's highlighted the little areas. And I think when I've done that with an embossing folder, that maybe a tree bark one or something like that, an industrial one, that'll look really pretty. There's areas where the walnut ink has sort of made it darker. There's a bit of blue here. It's got a lot more interest now, and when it's dry we'll have more still. I'll just wipe that up. Now this one, which I love, I'm going to treat slightly differently. A little bit similar but different. I'm going to sprinkle my Infusions Black Knight on there again. Hydrate it with the water. Fair bit of water. Get my brayer, and this time I'm going to mix it so that I don't get any areas with the oranges or any of the other colours coming through. You could do with this with a brush, but I tend to do it with my brayer, which is very, very noisy. If I wanted to use the excess, I could also brayer it off onto my other sheet. This was the first one, which you can see is quite nice. If I've got any lines that I don't like, I can just dab them and get rid of them. But that's added another little bit of depth to that page. So we've got our infusions, they're mixed with water, they're nicely mixed up, there isn't any little crystals that are, apart from on the brayer, undissolved. And then I'm just going to press this into it. I'll try not to get my fingers in it. That's nice. There's my other sheet. I'll pop that on there. I don't particularly like these strong areas, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dab them with a baby wipe. It just softens them a little bit, but we still get the variations. And if I wanted to darken the edges a little bit at the colour that is on the baby wipe, I can just go around the edges and just darken the edges a little bit. So that's quite nice. Let's see if they've still got some ink on here. I think I need a little bit more in areas. So the areas where I want more, I shall press it into the diluted ink again. And I do want some little areas of white. So I'm not going to completely cover it, with the dark, which you could if you wanted a darker effect. But I do quite like the little areas of white. So there we are. That I like, and I think if I do that with a tree bark embossing folder as the other one, or even a, yes, I think this would suit tree bark. This would be more industrial. I like how that is. What I am going to show you is what you do if you continue and you just continue to move the ink. So you can drag the ink down through the hole so that there isn't any white areas. So you see it's just filled in the white areas. So I could have left it how I wanted before, or I can go to this. The choice is yours. It depends on the final project that you're wanting to use it on. Let's see. Just get a bit more of this ink mopped up so we don't waste it. And I've got 2 sheets that I can start using as a base for backgrounds now, without wasting any of the ink. This is just a little bit left on there. And because it's permanent when it's dry, I can dry the baby wipes and use those in projects, rip them up and use those in projects as well. So we'll pop that out the way. So we've got our 2 sheets of Black Knight Infusions with Gesso. And I think you'll agree they make rather nice backgrounds. So I'll complete a project with them, and then I'll come back and show you the finished projects. Hello, so we're back. The papers are all dry, completely dry. This was a big one that I'd done with the brayering technique with the gesso and the infusions. Once that was dry, I sprinkled on more infusions, spritzed, and it filled in the various areas where there wasn't any colour. This was one of the ones that I created during the video. As you can see, it's not got a real lot of pattern to it. There is a bit missing because I've been playing to see what the effects are. So this was this area here. Now, as I said, I plan to do, I've used this, I think this is a Tim Holtz embossing folder, and it's sort of like a tree bark or a wood effect. It's just got a nice raised grain. So I popped my pieces of paper through the die cutting machine and embossed it. This one isn't embossed, so we'll put that away. This one is. You can probably see, hopefully, on the back side that it is embossed, but it doesn't particularly show up at the moment. Again, this one, you can't tell it's embossed. You can feel that it is, but you can't tell. But if you look on the back, you can tell. So to create this nice distressed wood effect, all I did, I got my vintage photo archival ink, distress archival ink. I actually might try it with the other one, ground espresso as well a little bit to see how that goes. I've got a makeup sponge, get plenty of ink on, and just lightly at first, and then you can decide how much you want the texture to show up. You see, it highlights all the raised texture. I'm going in a linear sort of movement, because then if I do get any streaks, it won't be as prominent. And you can see really, really picks up the grain of the embossing folder. I need a new makeup sponge, it's shedding terribly. So that's with the vintage photo. I might just try a corner with the ground espresso. Oh yes, that I like. So the darker highlights the grain more, the raised area. And there's nothing to stop you from doing a little bit of both, sort of quite a dark area here and there, but then paler areas elsewhere. I actually think that gives quite a nice effect. I'm going to fade it out. I'm not going to just have a blob. I'm sort of gradually fading it out. So can you see, you can still see the backgrounds of the infusions, but it's added another level to it. I really, really like that effect. What I'll do on the back is just show you what it looks like on the back if you just embossed on white and then highlighted the texture. There we are. So you can see the texture there if you just had a white background, but I think that just takes it to another level. I do like the dark. There we are. And I think the fact that we've got areas of both just adds a little bit of something. I do like things to have a dark frame, so I think I'm just gonna, that's it. Yeah, I think that's lovely. That would make a really nice front of a card for a man, for a male card. So that's the first one. We'll have a go with the second piece and see how this turns out. It's got more pattern to it, a lot more pattern to it. It's a lot different. I suppose tones, tints, tones and shades. There's some bluey greys, beiges. There's quite a lot of difference. Now I'm just wondering whether the grey and the black, sorry, I'm just ferreting about for my inks, might look quite nice on this. So I'll just find my black sponge. There we are. We'll start with the grey. As we did with the last one, we started with the pale. You can also do a different colour over the top. Yeah, I think the greys may be a little bit too similar to the background. So we'll try the black. Yeah, I think some black. I think what we need is some brown as well, so we'll do a mixture. So we'll put a little bit of black here and there. But I think we'll go to the ground espresso. I think that may be better. Yes, that's better. We can still see the colours in the background of the infusions, but I think it just adds a little bit more to it having the brown. Yeah, I think that's better. doing some sort of building works round us, so sorry you can hear all the noise. There we are. So that is another piece. So you can see the difference. This has got greys and blue tones in it. This is just more of the browns with a little bit of black. I am going to try is doing this method again, but have a quite bright, sort of pretty, maybe the raspberry infusions, and then emboss it and dry brush it with white to see how that turns out, because I think that might be quite pretty to look like distressed paintwork. But for the moment I'm very, very happy with those. Another thing that I just by a fluke, I thought I'd mention it. My Dymo machine, label printing machine, which I'll just get. It's over here. This one comes with a spool of the label making tape. Mine, it's quite old now. When the tape starts to get towards the end and it runs out, it doesn't emboss very well. It goes sort of, I get varied results. It isn't very consistent. It doesn't emboss in a line. It misses letters. I think because basically it's on the last little bit of the tape and it hasn't got the same, I don't know what the word is, it isn't going through consistently with the same sort of stretch to it. So I changed the cassette of label tape and I ended up with a length of just black tape. So I happened to pop it through the embossing folder that I'd used here, and this is what I got. It's a lovely, lovely embossed tape. So that's just an aside, but I thought I'd just let you in on the fun technique. Hello, so I'm back. I've done a journal page just in my little 6x6 craft journal. It's just from a local store to us. Well, it's a national chain, but we've got one in Brid. And it's The Works. It's a UK store. They've got quite a lot of discount art supplies. You pick and choose, but these little journals are absolutely fabulous. I absolutely love them. And being 6x6, you can do a journal page quite quickly. So I've used our lovely textured paper that we created. I've still got plenty of scraps left of all different sort of shades. I've got a Tim Holtz paper doll, and the rest of the ephemera, which is absolutely lovely, is from Fox and Found Studio, which is on Etsy. If you put in Fox and Found Studio into Etsy, it should come up, and it's a company owned by Katie Leach, and she's a lovely lady, and I absolutely love her printables and her ephemera. She has actual physical ephemera to buy as well as the printables, so check out her store. This paper is actually, I was very lucky, I found some in our local discount store. It's photographic paper, but it's matte, but it is also a sticker sheet, so the back peels off. It's a little bit fiddly to get off, but I usually just start at one corner and get a little bit to curl back, and then the back, if I can get hold of it, as I say, it's very, very fiddly to start with. It just peels off, and it's got quite a lot of stick, because I thought I might have to add a little bit of glue as well, but no, it's stuck well and truly to this paper. So this is the rest of the sheet that I haven't used of the printables. As you can see, I have used quite a few. They're the mini vintage, and there are little mini versions of a lot of our other ephemera. But there's also words, there's clocks, there's all sorts, and I love them. I love miniature things, or mini things. So I've made the background for our paper doll out of these. Just cut them out, inked the edges, and then peeled them and stuck them. And then some of my rusty paper clips, just to give a bit more texture. I've done a little bit of stamping across the corners and round the edges. That's just an indigo blue stamp, as is this text one here. It just gives it a little bit of border and brings it in. So that's one of the projects I did with our paper. The other one is just a little tag. Just a simple tag to put in a journal. This ephemera is actually Kaisercraft. It's from a sheet of scrapbooking, a 12 by 12 sheet of ephemera that you can cut out. And I've just layered it up, glued it on, done a little bit more stamping at the edges, and put a rusty paper clip. As you can see, the hole reinforcer is actually out of the same type of paper that we've created, and I just punched it out. This is a woodware stamp punch that I have, and it punches out hole reinforcers, either the one with 6 sides or the round one. So that's a nice little project as well, and that'll just pop into a vintage journal. So I hope you like what I've done with the papers, and I hope you give it a go.